Everyone laughed at her. The Chinese millionaire spoke and spoke, but it seemed no one wanted to understand. Employees mocked her, guests whispered, until a poor little girl, the daughter of a maid, surprised everyone by speaking Chinese. It was at that moment that a detail drew even more attention: the jade necklace the millionaire wore around her neck. At first glance, it was a simple necklace, but it hid a truth capable of staining the names of the city's rich and powerful. At that moment, no one could have imagined that the innocent words of the girl and that mysterious necklace were about to reveal secrets buried for decades, secrets that could destroy entire empires. The Regal Hotel, in the heart of Manhattan, was known as a temple of sophistication. Its marble floors gleamed under the golden light of the chandeliers, and its bronze revolving doors spun endlessly, welcoming and ushering out millionaires. It was a place where the poor existed only to serve, and the rich were accustomed to being treated like gods. In the employee break room, the buzz had started even before the mysterious guest arrived. Clara, a receptionist with a trained smile and a sharp tongue, spoke as if she were narrating a scandal. "This Chinese woman. I've never seen so many absurd requests," she said, shaking her head. The room temperature adjusted to 1/10 of a degree. No synthetic fabrics, and believe it or not, no flowers with strong scents on her floor. Peter the bellhop laughed, adjusting his cap. "She must be another one of those crazy celebrities. I bet she's going to be a handful." Agnes, the housekeeper, crossed her arms and sighed. "The problem is that people like her think they can boss everyone around just because they have money." The laughter was cut short when the manager, Mr. Albright, entered, sweating as usual. "Everyone listen up," he said, his voice trembling. "The VIP guest has arrived early, and no one can communicate with her." Outside, a black car pulled up to the main entrance. The doorman, in a hurry, opened the door, and a woman of imposing presence stepped out. An impeccable Chanel suit, dark sunglasses, Gucci accessories, and 2 aged leather suitcases that clashed with the modern luggage. Madame Limay didn't seem to smile or care about the stares. She spoke rapidly in Mandarin, gesturing towards the suitcases. The employees exchanged lost glances, while Clara maintained her forced smile. "Welcome to the Regal, madam. Your name, please?" The woman ignored the question and repeated something in Chinese. It was then that all eyes turned to the child observing from the background. Sarah Jackson, the daughter of Rosa, a maid forgotten in the hallways, watched the scene in silence. She was small, in simple clothes, but with a different kind of sparkle in her eyes. And before anyone could laugh at the situation again, the girl's voice came out clear and surprising. "She's asking you to be very careful with the bags. They are more valuable than they seem." The lobby froze. The silence that filled the hall felt too heavy to be broken for several seconds. Everyone stared at Sarah as if she were a ghost. The girl, only 10 years old, had spoken Chinese so naturally that no one could hide their astonishment. Clara was the first to react, frowning and trying to regain control of the situation. "How does this girl know what she's saying?" she whispered loud enough for others to hear. Rosa, who had been discreetly collecting linens in a cart, was paralyzed. Her heart pounded, fearing her daughter had gone too far. Employees like her were already treated as invisible, but any misstep could cost her job. She quickly approached Sarah, gripping her by the shoulder. "Be quiet, young lady," she murmured firmly, trying to smooth things over. But it was too late. Madame Limay, who had been reserved and cold until now, lifted her head. Behind her dark glasses, her eyes shone with emotion. For the first time since she had set foot in the hotel, she seemed pleased. She approached Sarah and in Mandarin said something that only the girl understood. Sarah took a deep breath, looking at her mother before translating for the others. She said she has finally found someone she can trust. The shock was immediate. Peter scoffed. "Trust a little girl? This has to be a joke." Agnes, however, narrowed her eyes as if sensing there was more to this story. The manager, Mr. Albright, did not like the scene at all. "Madam, if there is a communication problem, we will provide a professional translator," he said, forcing a smile. "There is no need to involve children." Madame Limay did not answer, merely touching the jade necklace hanging from her neck. The gesture caught everyone's attention. There was something strange about that object. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was heavy, ancient, and laden with history. Sarah, with the innocence only a child possesses, completed the translation without realizing the danger she was in. She said this necklace has caused much bloodshed. And if it falls into the wrong hands, powerful people in this city will lose everything they own. The words echoed like a threat. Peter's laugh vanished. The color drained from Clara's face, and Manager Albright swallowed hard. Rosa pulled her daughter back, terrified. "Sarah, for God's sake, don't repeat such things," she whispered desperately. But it was too late. The Chinese millionaire had chosen her translator, and with each revealed sentence, it became clear that the lives of everyone in that hotel were about to change forever. The hotel lobby still felt charged after Sarah's revelation. No one dared to comment openly, but the glances said it all. Some guests whispered discreetly, intrigued by the scene, while employees pretended to continue their tasks, though every gesture was tinged with tension. Clara approached the counter, still annoyed by what had just happened. "This isn't right," she muttered, trying to sound professional but with venom in her voice. "How can a girl like that understand Mandarin? It's obvious they're making something up." Peter, ever the cynic, shook his head. "Making it up? Did you hear what she said?" And that Chinese lady confirmed it with a look. "If it's a setup, it's a good one." Agnes, however, kept her brow furrowed. There was something about that necklace that she couldn't get out of her head. The way Madame Limay touched it seemed almost ritualistic, nearly reverent. She approached Rosa and spoke in a low tone. "Rosa, you need to control that girl. You don't know what you might be getting into." Rosa swallowed hard, her heart clenching. She was already consumed by fear. She knew that any wrong move could cost her job, or perhaps even Sarah's safety. She pulled her daughter close and whispered firmly, "You don't say another word, understand? Not a single word." But Madame Limay seemed unwilling to let go of her unlikely ally. She removed her dark sunglasses, revealing intense, observant eyes, and leaned slightly towards Sarah. She spoke again in Mandarin, unhurriedly, as if testing the depths of the girl's understanding. Sarah, hesitant, translated in a low but audible voice for everyone. She said this hotel hides more than just marble walls. She said men have passed through here who have stolen not just money, but entire lives. The air grew heavy. Manager Mr. Albright's eyes widened, and he tried to intervene quickly. "That's enough," he said sharply. "This is a prestigious hotel, and we will not allow nonsensical talk to create a disturbance." Madame Limay, however, was unfazed. She straightened up and cast a cold glance at the manager. Then she held her necklace again, clutching it as if guarding a secret. At that moment, one of the guests, a portly businessman in a grey suit, approached with curiosity. "Excuse me, what is this lady saying?" he asked, clearly intrigued. It was Sarah who answered before her mother could stop her, that this necklace holds the proof of crimes no one has had the courage to reveal. Silence once again dominated the room. Even the sound of the elevators seemed to stop. Rosa squeezed her daughter's hand desperately, but it was too late. The girl had become the spokesperson for a dangerous truth, and for the first time, the employees realized they weren't dealing with just any guest, but with a story that could shake the very foundations of the entire city. The atmosphere in the lobby had completely shifted. What was once just another noisy arrival now seemed like the beginning of a scandal. Some guests, bothered by the commotion, began to move away, whispering among themselves. Others, more curious, remained, waiting to see how the scene would unfold. The hotel's luxury suddenly seemed diminished by the unfolding mystery. Rosa's heart was in pieces. She held Sarah tightly, trying to hide the fear that overflowed in her eyes. The innocent girl didn't understand the weight of what she had just said. To her, it was just a translation, nothing more than words. But Rosa knew that words could turn into weapons, especially when they involved the rich and powerful. The manager, Mr. Albright, tried to keep a firm expression, but sweat beaded on his forehead. He approached the receptionist, Clara, and whispered, "We can't let this spread. Call an official interpreter now, and please get that girl out of here before she ruins the hotel's reputation." Clara nodded with a self-satisfied smirk. For her, it was a chance to prove her worth and perhaps score points with management. She approached Rosa and spoke in a tone that mixed authority and contempt. "You need to take your daughter out of here immediately. This is no place for a child." Rosa opened her mouth to reply, but before she could speak, Madame Limay intervened. She took the necklace from her neck and held it up for all to see. The jade shone under the lobby lights, but there was something dark about the jewel. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The millionaire spoke a few quick words in Mandarin, fixing her eyes on Sarah. The girl, though hesitant, translated. She said this necklace holds the names of those who got rich by stealing from the weak, politicians, businessmen, even bankers. They all hide behind expensive clothes and fake smiles. The impact was immediate. A grey-haired gentleman who had been watching from a distance turned pale as a sheet. An elegant lady draped in jewels looked away as if she had something to hide. Peter, the bellhop who had been laughing at everything, whispered to Agnes, "If this is true, some big shots are in deep trouble." Agnes just nodded nervously. The manager, Mr. Albright, desperate, threw up his hands. "Enough," he said, almost shouting. "These stories are baseless. The Regal is a respectable hotel and we will not tolerate slander." But it was too late. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and Sarah, still not fully understanding, had become the conduit for a revelation that could destroy untouchable men. Rosa hugged her daughter tightly, whispering in her ear, "You don't know what you're getting into, my little one. You don't know the danger you're in." The silence that had dominated the lobby soon gave way to increasingly loud whispers. Guests murmured in groups, looking suspiciously at Madame Limay and especially at the jade necklace, which she held as if it were an invisible weapon. That simple object hanging from a foreigner's neck now seemed more dangerous than any official document. Rosa was trembling. She knew her daughter had drawn too much attention. She looked around and noticed the sidelong glances, some of contempt, others of pure terror. She wanted to disappear, but Sarah's hand was firm in hers, as if the girl were incapable of feeling fear. Mr. Albright adjusted his suit jacket, trying to regain control of the situation, but a growing panic throbbed within him. If this story were taken seriously, if there was any chance the necklace contained evidence against the city's politicians and businessmen, then he, as the manager of the hotel that frequently hosted them, could also be at risk. "We need to end this now," he muttered through clenched teeth, turning to Clara. "Call the main office. I want security here in 5 minutes." Clara obeyed without question, but the malicious glint in her eyes made it clear she was enjoying the chaos. For her, every detail would be a delicious piece of gossip to spread later. Meanwhile, Peter and Agnes were talking in low voices near the door. "Did you see the look on that guy in the grey suit?" Peter said, discreetly pointing to the portly guest. "He looked like he was going to faint when he heard the girl's translation." "I saw," Agnes replied, unsettled. "People like that don't get shaken for nothing. There's something dirty going on here." Madame Limay, oblivious to the surrounding chaos, beckoned Sarah with a gesture. The girl approached, and the millionaire spoke again in Mandarin, staring intently at the necklace. Sarah took a deep breath before translating, with the innocence of someone who doesn't grasp the weight of her own voice. She said this necklace doesn't just belong to her. It carries the stolen histories of a people, and that there are men in this city who would do anything to destroy it because it holds the proof of what they stole. The impact was immediate. Some guests took a step back as if the object were cursed. Others glared at the millionaire with anger, as if she had dared to open a wound that should never have been exposed. Rosa pulled her daughter back, almost in despair. "Enough, Sarah, please don't say anything more." But Madame Limay raised her hand as if giving a silent command. And at that moment, it became clear to everyone that the woman was not alone in her fight. There was a hidden war about to surface, and somehow a poor child had become its most powerful voice. The wait wasn't long. The firm sound of footsteps echoed in the lobby, and soon 2 tall men in black suits walked through the revolving door. They had a military bearing and cold eyes, accustomed to obeying orders without asking questions. Mr. Albright sighed in relief, as if these security guards were the solution to the chaos. "Finally," he muttered, adjusting his tie before approaching them. "I want you to escort this lady to her room and ensure no one bothers her further." But everyone understood the subtext. This wasn't just a security measure. It was a message to silence Madame Limay. Rosa instinctively hugged Sarah, as if sensing the danger. The girl's eyes, however, shone more with curiosity than fear. She watched the guards as if trying to solve a puzzle, not realizing she was the most vulnerable piece in the entire game. Clara crossed her arms and offered a satisfied smile. "Now we'll bring some order to this circus," she whispered, not hiding her contempt. But before the guards could approach, Madame Limay held the jade necklace up high, capturing everyone's attention. Her voice in Mandarin was firm, filled with authority. Even without understanding, those present felt the weight of her words. Sarah, hesitant, translated. She said this necklace holds names. Names that, if revealed, will ruin entire elite families in this city. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Even the guards, trained to show no emotion, exchanged quick glances. They knew this was more than just a troublesome guest. There was something much bigger behind this woman. Peter muttered to Agnes, unsettled. This is no tall tale. If it were a lie, the big shots wouldn't be shaking like this. Agnes just nodded, her gaze fixed on Sarah. And the worst part is, this little girl is carrying it all on her shoulders. Manager Albright tried to regain control. That's enough, he said loudly. Madam, the hotel will provide an official interpreter. We do not need the help of a child. Sarah squeezed her mother's hand but replied anyway, translating with clarity. She said she doesn't trust interpreters paid by politicians and will only speak through me. The shock was immediate. Rosa almost stumbled backward. Sarah, no, she whispered, terrified. But it was too late. The Chinese millionaire had sealed her choice. The guards, unsure how to proceed, looked to the manager for orders. Albright, flustered, just gestured for them to wait. And in that stalemate, everyone realized this was no longer about a simple luxury stay. It was the beginning of a silent battle, where a child had become the center of everything. The wall clock in the lobby seemed to tick slower, as if time itself had thickened along with the heavy air. The two security guards remained motionless, but their watchful eyes followed every gesture of Madame Limay and little Sarah. Mr. Albright paced back and forth, nervous. His fingers drummed against his thigh, as if searching for a quick escape from an impossible problem. Just then, a stout man in a grey suit and red tie approached him. The face was well known, Mr. Morrison, a renowned lawyer and consultant to the city's politicians. You need to handle this now, Albright, he murmured sharply. This woman can't be allowed to spread rumors, and especially not that little girl. If she keeps talking, she'll cause real damage. The manager turned pale. But what if there's some truth to what she's saying? He ventured, his voice barely a whisper. The lawyer smiled coldly. Truth or lie, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this doesn't leave this room. Understood. Meanwhile, Clara, ever watchful, pretended to organize papers at the counter, but she heard every word. Her eyes gleamed with the possibility of using this information later, whether for gossip or to get closer to powerful people. In the corner, Rosa watched the scene with a lump in her throat. She realized the danger came not just from the millionaire or the necklace, but from the men around them, who seemed more frightened of the revelation than willing to seek the truth. She held Sarah's hand tightly, as if to shield her from the entire world. But the girl, oblivious to her mother's fear, stared at Madame Limay with an almost hypnotic curiosity. When the millionaire spoke again in Mandarin, Sarah translated without hesitation. She said that contracts have been signed in this very hotel that cost innocent people their lives. She said this necklace holds memories, names of families destroyed by greed. A murmur went through the lobby. Some guests turned pale, others exchanged looks of terror. The lawyer, Mr. Morrison, moved closer to the manager and whispered firmly, "If this continues, we will have to intervene in another way." The words hung in the air like a knife. Rosa felt a chill run down her spine. She sensed that intervene meant much more than just removing the guest from the hotel. The manager nodded silently, defeated. He was no longer in control. The ones in control now were the powerful men who hid behind smiles and contracts. And in the midst of it all, a poor child had become the most dangerous piece in the entire game. The corridors of the Regal Hotel, once filled with hurried footsteps and discreet laughter, were now consumed by an uncomfortable silence. What had happened in the lobby had spread like wildfire. Housekeepers whispered in groups, bellhops exchanged wary glances. Even the chef, who rarely cared for gossip, let slip a comment about the child who spoke Chinese and held the secrets of the rich. Clara seized the moment to spread her own version of the events. Each time she told the story, she added a new detail. Sometimes she implied the millionaire was crazy, other times that the girl was being manipulated. The venom of her words flowed quickly, planting doubt in everyone, but not everyone was convinced. Agnes, who had observed everything up close, couldn't ignore Madame Limé's serene gaze nor Sarah's firm innocence. Something inside her said there was truth to the story, no matter how absurd it seemed. She found Peter in the hallway and spoke in a low voice. "Didn't you feel it?" When the girl translated, it felt real. It wasn't made up. Peter sighed, running a hand over his forehead. "I felt it, but we need to be careful. I've seen people disappear for much less." Meanwhile, in the lobby, Manager Albright was meeting with two trusted men sent by the lawyers. "I want you to keep that child away from the public," he said, trying to sound firm. "If necessary, make up an excuse. Say she disturbed a guest and will have to leave the premises with her mother." Rosa, overhearing part of the conversation as she passed by, felt her legs tremble. She had endured years of silent humiliation, but this was different. They were plotting against her daughter. She hugged Sarah and whispered, "We need to get out of here before something worse happens." But Sarah, with wide eyes, answered softly, "Mom, she needs me. Didn't you see? It's like I'm the only person she trusts." Rosa's dilemma only grew. Torn between protecting her daughter and obeying the hotel's rules, her heart felt crushed from all sides. Madame Limé, for her part, remained calm. From her imposing stature, she seemed to fear nothing. Once again, she touched the jade necklace and murmured in Mandarin, looking intently at Sarah. The girl translated in a low but firm voice. She said, "The secrets of this necklace cannot be buried again, and that I am the key to revealing everything." The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Employees, guests, and even the security guards exchanged glances, torn between loyalty to the hotel and the feeling that they were witnessing something much bigger than themselves. The clock was nearing noon, but inside the Regal Hotel, time seemed to stand still. The tension had reached a point where pretending things were normal was no longer possible. The lobby, once a stage for warm welcomes and discreet luxury transactions, now felt like a silent courtroom. Every word translated by Sarah was a sentence falling upon heads too heavy to bear. Clara, always eager to be seen, decided to act. She walked towards Rosa and Sarah with firm steps, as if she owned the place. "Enough of this nonsense," she said with the forced smile of someone trying to maintain composure. "This hotel is not a theater stage. You, Rosa, need to take your daughter home now." Rosa flushed with shame and squeezed her daughter's hand tightly. But before she could respond, Peter stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Clara, let it go. The girl hasn't done anything wrong." But Clara didn't back down. Her sharp gaze swept over Sarah's face as if trying to shrink her. "Done nothing wrong?" she retorted. "She's embarrassing the entire hotel with these meaningless translations. Who will trust the Regal after this?" The words were like daggers to Rosa's heart. She had endured many humiliations in that place, but hearing her daughter described as an embarrassment left her shattered. She felt her throat burn but held her ground. "My daughter has not lied about a single word," she said, her voice trembling but full of courage. The confrontation drew immediate attention. Guests moved closer, curious. Even the security guards took a few steps back, unsure of which side to take. It was then that Madame Limé rose from the armchair where she was sitting and walked towards Rosa. Her steps were slow, but each movement carried an authority that silenced everyone. She touched Sarah's shoulder and said something in Mandarin, her voice low but firm. The girl translated, "She said that my voice is the proof that the truth cannot be silenced." The silence that followed was almost suffocating. Clara huffed but retreated, realizing she had lost control of the scene. Still, she shot a hateful look at Rosa, as if promising revenge at another time. Meanwhile, Mr. Albright watched from a distance, his stomach churning. The lawyer, Mr. Morrison, had made it clear this chaos could not continue. And if it meant tarnishing the name of Rosa and her daughter to cover up the scandal, so be it. Rosa, however, knew nothing of the behind-the-scenes conversations. All she felt was the weight of protecting her child against an invisible enemy. She hugged Sarah tightly as silent tears threatened to fall. And in that desperate embrace, a cruel truth became clear. It didn't matter if Sarah was telling the truth or not, because there were people willing to destroy them just to keep their secrets buried. The tension had reached an unbearable point. The lobby, once a place of warm welcomes and discreet luxury, now felt like a silent courtroom. Every word translated by Sarah was a judgment falling on heads too heavy to carry. Manager Albright, pressured by Mr. Morrison and discreet phone calls from influential people, made a decision. He called the security guards aside and whispered quick orders, as if planning a calculated move. The two men nodded without question, preparing to act. Meanwhile, Rosa tried to convince her daughter to move away from the millionaire. "Sarah, my girl, please don't say anything more. Let's go before things get worse." But Sarah shook her head, determined. "Mom, she needs me." "I can feel it. If I don't help, no one will hear the truth." Rosa's heart broke. How could she explain to a child that the truth is sometimes the very thing that puts one's life at risk? It was at that moment that the security guards moved in. One of them, in a cold voice, said, "Ma'am, we're going to need the child to step away from this guest. Orders from management." The silence that followed was devastating. Clara smiled with satisfaction. Peter and Agnes, however, exchanged worried glances. Neither of them had the courage to object, but they knew this was crossing a line. Before Rosa could react, Madame Limay stood up with unexpected firmness, held the jade necklace up before the guards and spoke in Mandarin, her tone filled with authority. Sarah, her breath catching, translated. She said that if they try to take me away, it will be proof that this hotel only serves to protect criminals. The sentence landed like a bombshell. The watching crowd couldn't contain its murmurs. Guests discreetly filmed with their phones, recording every second of the silent battle. Manager Albright's face turned red, torn between the fear of losing control and the fury of being exposed. Rosa pulled Sarah close, desperate. "You don't understand, my child. They won't let this go." Madame Limay, however, placed a hand on Rosa's shoulder, as if offering strength. Her intense eyes conveyed a clear message. There was more at stake than anyone imagined. The security guards hesitated, awaiting new orders. Albright gestured nervously, unsure whether to retreat or advance. And in that standoff, it became evident the battle was no longer just between a guest and a hotel. It was between the truth and the secrets that propped up the powerful of the city. The whispers in the lobby soon turned into something bigger. Some guests, with the casualness of those used to documenting every detail of their lives, had discreetly filmed the scene. In a matter of minutes, the videos began to circulate in private groups, messaging apps, and even on social media. The footage showed the Chinese millionaire holding up the jade necklace, the child translating heavy words, and the manager trying to suppress the situation. Regardless of the context, the impact was inevitable. Rosa realized it when a young guest sitting on one of the sofas showed the recording to his friends. They laughed nervously as if watching a forbidden film. Rosa's blood ran cold. This was no longer just a problem within the hotel. It was a spark that could ignite the entire city. Mr. Albright realized it too. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he spoke in a low tone with the lawyer, Mr. Morrison. "It's out of control. If these videos get out, we won't be able to contain it." The lawyer narrowed his eyes, furious. "Then do something. Get that girl out of here at once, and if you have to, invent an accusation against her mother." These words did not go unnoticed. Agnes, standing nearby, heard everything. Her stomach turned. She had never been fond of Rosa, but at that moment she realized they were about to sacrifice an innocent woman and her daughter to protect powerful people. Meanwhile, Clara was already spreading her own version among the guests. "Can you imagine?" she said with a conspiratorial air. "An eccentric millionaire and a girl who suddenly speaks Chinese. This has to be a setup. I bet this woman made it all up for attention." But not everyone believed it. Madame Limay's cold gaze, the seriousness with which she held the necklace, and the unexpected courage of little Sarah conveyed a strange sense of truth, something that not even Clara's sharp tongue could erase. Suddenly, a guest's phone beeped loudly. He read the screen and his eyes widened. "It's already on Twitter," he announced, showing the others. The lobby fell into a tense silence. The news was spreading faster than any of the manager's orders. Now what was happening inside the Regal was no longer a secret. Rosa felt her legs weaken. She hugged Sarah tightly, as if she could hide her from the world. But deep down, she already knew there was no going back. Her daughter had become the voice of a truth that was escaping the hotel's walls. And for the powerful, that meant only one thing: danger. The impact was immediate. In less than an hour, the videos from the lobby were circulating in closed groups of businessmen, journalists, and even political aides. What should have been just another ordinary day at the Regal Hotel had now turned into a silent earthquake, about to erupt. In the hotel's private office, Mr. Albright met, hastily, with the lawyer, Mr. Morrison, and two other men in impeccable suits. The doors were closed, but their raised voices escaped through the cracks. "If the press shows up here, we're finished," said Morrison, slamming his hand on the table. "We cannot let this story grow. That Chinese woman must be silenced. And the girl? Well, the girl cannot continue translating." One of the men, an influential real estate developer, took a deep breath and added, "If these rumors about dirty contracts come to light, half this city will sink. I've invested fortunes to keep my name clean." The pale manager just nodded. Each word heightened his terror. He wasn't powerful like these men, just an employee trying to survive. But now he was trapped in a web that could destroy him. Meanwhile, in the lobby, Rosa tried to calm Sarah, who was beginning to realize the scale of the commotion. "Mum, why are they so nervous?" the innocent girl asked. "Because they're afraid of the truth, my child," Rosa answered, swallowing hard. "And when powerful people are afraid, it's people like us who suffer." Madame Limay, sitting calmly, seemed oblivious to the chaos, but her eyes observed everything with precision. Once again, she touched the jade necklace and murmured in Mandarin. Directing her words to Sarah, the girl translated with hesitation. She said she knew this would happen, that this necklace is not just a memento, but a weapon against those who built empires with blood and lies. The murmur grew. Some guests were already calling journalists. Others were discreetly leaving, fearing they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The atmosphere of the Regal, so accustomed to luxury and silence, was now a pressure cooker. Suddenly, Clara approached Rosa with a venomous smile. "Are you happy now?" she whispered. "Your daughter has put her mother in the middle of an international scandal. I hope you're ready to pay the price." Rosa didn't answer, just held Sarah even tighter. Inside, she knew Clara was partly right. The price would be high, but something in Madame Limay's posture gave her hope. That woman seemed to have a larger plan, as if everything was happening exactly as it should. And for the first time, Rosa began to wonder, did the necklace hold not just secrets, but also a strategy capable of bringing down the city's untouchables? The Regal Hotel no longer felt like a haven of luxury, but rather a veiled battlefield. Black cars began to park discreetly at the side entrance, from which figures in suits with stern gazes emerged without even going through reception. They were politicians, businessmen, and lawyers. Men accustomed to being obeyed, not questioned. Manager Albright, even paler than before, rushed to greet them. "Gentlemen, please, we can resolve this without a scandal." But his trembling voice betrayed his insecurity. The first to approach was a well-known city senator, a man with a soft-spoken manner, but a dubious reputation. He looked directly at the jade necklace on Madame Limay's neck and forced a smile. "My dear lady, I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding." Then he turned to Rosa and Sarah, as if scolding them. "And children should not meddle in such serious matters." Sarah, despite her fear, stood tall beside her mother. Her curious eyes did not waver for a second. When Madame Limay spoke in Mandarin, the girl translated firmly. She said she is not afraid of you and that this necklace holds the proof of every theft, every lie, every life destroyed. The hall fell silent. The senator's smile vanished and his eyes hardened. Behind him, two businessmen whispered, exchanging worried glances. Clara, watching closely, took the opportunity to fan the flames. "Look at this. A foreign millionaire and a poor child want us to believe in conspiracy theories." Her voice dripped with venom. "This only brings shame to the hotel." Peter, indignant, retorted before he could stop himself. "What's shameful is seeing such powerful men afraid of a little girl." The comment echoed more than he expected. Some guests clapped discreetly. Others just nodded in silence. But the reaction was enough to irritate the politicians present. The senator approached Rosa, lowering his voice but making the threat clear. "Control your daughter. If she continues, I won't be responsible for the consequences." Rosa's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to run away, but her legs were rooted to the floor. She hugged Sarah tightly, as if she could protect her from the entire world. Madame Limay, however, placed herself between them and the men in suits. Her eyes burned with determination, and she spoke again in Mandarin, her voice as firm as steel. Sarah translated, her voice echoing in the crowded lobby. She said that the powerful of this city have grown accustomed to silencing the poor, but not today. Today, a child will speak for all those who have never been heard. The shock rippled through every corner of the hotel. For the first time, the untouchables didn't know how to react. The atmosphere in the lobby had become unbearable. The politicians and businessmen, now gathered in a tight circle, spoke in low but furious tones. Manager Albright was sweating profusely, trapped between the orders of the powerful and the steady gaze of the Chinese millionaire. The jade necklace seemed to radiate an invisible force, capable of unsettling even the most arrogant. It was in this setting that one of the security guards, receiving a discreet signal from the senator, approached Rosa and Sarah. His voice sounded like a sentence. "The girl is coming with us." Rosa's heart nearly stopped. She immediately stood in front of her daughter. "No, she's not going anywhere." Her voice trembled, but the firmness in her eyes surprised even herself. The guard was not deterred. He took a step forward and tried to push Rosa aside with his arm. The shock of force against fragility made the guests rise in protest. Murmurs of outrage echoed through the lobby. Madame Limei raised her hand and spoke in Mandarin, her voice as firm as thunder. Sarah, frightened, translated between sobs. She said that if you touch me, it will be proof that you are all guilty and that the necklace will speak louder than any threat. The guard hesitated, looking to the manager for confirmation. Albright, under pressure, nervously gestured for him to proceed, but at that moment something unexpected happened. Peter, who had always been seen as just a cocky bellhop, stood before Rosa and Sarah. "If you want to take this girl, you'll have to go through me." The silence was broken by a tentative applause from the back of the hall. It was a guest who moved, couldn't contain his reaction. Soon others followed, and in a few seconds the entire lobby echoed with applause and murmurs of support. The senator, furious, whispered to the lawyer, "Mr. Morrison, this is turning into a circus. If we don't resolve this now, we'll be on the front page tomorrow." But it was too late. The public was no longer just observing. They were choosing a side. And surprisingly, the side they chose was not that of the men in suits. Rosa, with tears in her eyes, hugged her daughter tightly. She felt fear, but also something new, hope. For the first time, she was not alone, and as the sound of applause echoed, Madame Limei held the necklace to her chest and whispered another phrase in Mandarin, glaring at the politicians with contempt. Sarah, still trembling, translated. She said the days of silence are over. The distant sound of sirens echoed through the streets of Manhattan as the first journalists began to arrive at the entrance of the Regal Hotel. News vans parked in a line. Cameras were hastily unpacked and reporters pushed each other to get inside. The buzz in the lobby turned into chaos. Clara, seeing the commotion, rushed to the reception desk with a malicious glint in her eyes. "I'll talk to them myself," she said, straightening her uniform. "Someone has to protect the hotel's image." But Manager Albright stopped her with a sharp gesture. "Nobody says anything," he snarled, his voice thick with desperation. "If the press finds out what happened in here, we're finished." It was too late. The cameras were already coming through the glass doors, capturing the first images of Madame Limei, proud and serene, holding the jade necklace to her chest, with Sarah and Rosa by her side. The scene was powerful. The foreign millionaire and the poor girl, united by something the powerful were trying to hide. Flashes illuminated everyone's faces. Sarah blinked, startled, while Rosa tried to shield her with her arms. Madame Limei, however, did not look away. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. "Madame Limei," a reporter shouted, "what does this necklace represent? What proof do you have?" The millionaire answered in Mandarin with a firm voice. Sarah, hesitant, translated. She said this necklace has belonged to her family for generations, and that inside it are secrets that politicians and businessmen in this city paid a high price to hide. A murmur of shock went through the hall. The cameras captured the girl's every word, and there was no turning back. The outside world was beginning to hear what had been a secret until now. The senator, furious, tried to intervene. "This is a lie," he shouted, raising his hands to the cameras. "It's nothing but a farce invented to destroy reputations." But the lenses did not favor him. The sweat on his forehead, The tremor in his hands and his uncontrolled anger conveyed the exact opposite, the fear of someone with something to hide. Peter discreetly approached Rosa and murmured, "They won't stop, Rosa. Now that the press is here, they'll try to turn the story against you." And he was right. Journalists were already surrounding Clara for statements, and she, with a venomous smile, began to spread her version. "This woman and the girl are deceiving all of you. The necklace is just an old piece of jewelry." But as Clara spoke, the cameras remained focused on the image that truly mattered, a millionaire and a child, united by the courage to expose what so many had tried to bury. The lobby of the Regal Hotel resembled a battlefield disguised as a press conference. Microphones stretched towards everyone. Cameras flashed non-stop, and every word spoken was recorded in real time. What was once an isolated scene had now escalated into a public scandal. Mr. Morrison, the experienced lawyer, was the first to take charge. He stepped onto a small platform and raised his voice with theatrical flair. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press, do not be fooled. This foreign lady has come to our country with baseless stories. There is no proof, only insinuations. As for the child, well, children are easily manipulated." The words echoed cold and calculated. Some cameras turned to Sarah, who shrank beside her mother. Rosa's heart broke seeing her daughter treated like a puppet. Clara, seizing the chance to be in the spotlight, rushed to the reporters and added, "That's right. I work here, I know everything." This guest created a spectacle for attention. The necklace is nothing more than old costume jewelry. The senator, who had remained silent until then, raised his hands in a gesture of false serenity. "Friends, let's remain calm. We cannot allow rumors to destroy the names of honest men who have done so much for this city." The narrative began to take shape. The eccentric millionaire, the manipulated child, the innocent rich being unjustly attacked. But then Madame Limay stood up. Her silence up to that point made every eye turn to her. She spoke in Mandarin, and her voice, though incomprehensible to most, carried an undeniable force. Sarah took a deep breath, tears in her eyes, and translated. She said that every word they speak is a mask, that this necklace is not just a piece of jewelry, but the key to revealing hidden documents, and that if anything happens to her or to me, everything will come to light anyway. The impact was immediate. The journalists became agitated, bombarding the politicians with questions. "What documents are these? Is the hotel involved? Why are you so afraid of a single guest?" The senator stammered, lost. The lawyer tried to cut off the questions, but there was no controlling the crowd anymore. Peter, watching the scene, murmured to Agnes, "They've lost control." The more they try to silence them, the more they reveal their guilt. Rosa looked at her daughter with a mix of pride and terror. Sarah, small and fragile, was now the voice challenging giants. And at that moment, it became clear there was no going back. The secret of the necklace no longer belonged only to Madame Limay. It was a bomb about to explode in the face of the entire city. The entire lobby of the Regal Hotel seemed frozen in time. The glare of the jade necklace reflected in the camera lenses, while every word translated by Sarah echoed like a hammer of justice. The politicians and businessmen, once haughty, were now pale, sweating, and trying to escape the microphones. Madame Limay did not back down. Her eyes carried decades of pain and silence. She spoke in Mandarin, slow and firm, as if dictating a sentence. Sarah took a deep breath and translated with the clearest voice she had ever had. She said their wealth was born from the misery of innocence, that every stone of this hotel, every fortune built, cost tears and blood, and that today, before everyone, these forgotten voices have finally been heard. The impact was devastating. Journalists were broadcasting live. Social media exploded with comments, and hashtags with the millionaires and the girls' names trended worldwide. The senator, unable to control his panic, tried to snatch the necklace from Madame Limay's hands, but was restrained by his own security guards, who, hesitant until then, realized they could no longer align themselves with the wrong side of history. The scene was captured on dozens of cell phones, the powerful man reduced to a desperate aggressor. Rosa fell to her knees, hugging Sarah tightly. Tears streamed down her face, not just of fear, but of pride. Her daughter, so small and invisible to the world, had become the thread of voice that no one could silence. "You were so brave, my little girl," she whispered, moved. Peter and Agnes, who watched it all, approached and helped Rosa to her feet. For the first time, the woman did not feel alone. Madame Limay placed the necklace back on her neck and faced Rosa and Sarah with a look of gratitude. In Mandarin, she murmured a few short words. Sarah translated, smiling through her tears. She said she never could have done it without us. The entire lobby erupted in applause. It wasn't just applause for the millionaire, but also for the girl who dared to challenge the powerful. Journalists recorded every detail, and at that moment it was clear the truth could no longer be buried. The Regal Hotel, once a symbol of luxury and power, had become the stage where justice began to take its first steps. And the final lesson etched in the hearts of all present was simple and powerful. Sometimes, the most fragile voice is the one with the strength to change the world. Days later, the Regal Hotel was no longer the same. The revolving doors still turned, the chandeliers still shone, but the air of invincibility had been shattered forever. Newspapers ran headlines, "Secrets of Jade," "Chinese millionaire exposes corruption in Manhattan." Politicians resigned, businessmen were called to account, and even the hotel's name was now stained by the scandal. For Rosa and Sarah, however, life took a different turn. The fear still lingered, but it was now accompanied by a new feeling, pride. People who once passed them without a glance now stopped them on the street to thank them, to say that a child's courage had given a voice to those who had never been heard. One sunny morning, Peter showed up at the modest home where Rosa lived. He wore a sincere smile and carried a folder under his arm. "The hotel will never be the same, Rosa, but you and your daughter deserve a new chance." He handed her documents, a job offer elsewhere, with better conditions. Rosa, moved, hugged her friend. For the first time, she felt she wasn't just a disposable employee. Sarah, for her part, retained the curious gaze that had always been with her. Madame Limay had returned to her homeland, but not before leaving a gift. A small jade pendant, a replica of the necklace given only to her. "So you never forget," her mother would translate, "that your voice has power." At school, the classmates who once cared little now looked at her with admiration. But Sarah didn't boast or seek attention. She just smiled, knowing she had made a difference. On the last evening, before returning to their routine, Rosa sat with her daughter on the porch. The gentle breeze rustled the curtains, and the city lights twinkled in the distance. "You changed everything, my little one," Rosa said, stroking her daughter's hair. "I spent my life thinking only the great could win, but you showed me that even the smallest can light up the darkness." Sarah rested her head on her mother's shoulder and, with the sweet innocence of a child, replied, "It wasn't just me. Mom, it was us." And there, under the stars, mother and daughter found peace. The war against the powerful would continue in courtrooms and on the streets, but in their hearts there was already victory. Because no matter the size of the enemy, the truth, when spoken by the right voice, always finds a way to win. If you like this story, then please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.